Aspirant side, you know that from the introduction of psychology, UPSC has asked only almost 3 questions in a random way. First is psychology as a science, second is application of psychology, third is approaches of psychology. So let's discuss one of them, psychology as a science. Almost 7 to 8 questions has been asked from this segment. If you have crystal clear concept in this segment, so definitely you can solve almost 7 to 8 questions. Similarly, if you have clear concepts about the approaches of psychology, so you can again solve more than 10 to 15 questions. If you have well or good understanding about that application of psychology, in that situation you can also solve around 7 to 8 questions. So what I suggest you should set this type of strategy. Means first of all you should write or develop a concepts of any unit or any segments, then you should solve its previous year question related to that will build your confidence. Here I have taken one of them, that is psychology as a science. So what question has been asked in this segment, that we will also do after the understanding of the concepts. So let's proceed our class. You know that psychology is almost considered as a topic of humanities, right? But there is a big debate or discussion or sometime arguments in the support of psychology as a science. So actual position of psychology, what is there, we will understand at here. First of all, we will understand what is science at there. So science means, you know that what is science? Science means any systematic, right? And one thing also I want to clear before move ahead, in the every units, in the every topics, you must define keywords, right? Here is the first word is science, you must define properly. And second is related diagram if it is possible, right? That can boost your marks. So first of all, define accurately what is science. Science means any body of knowledge, right? Any body of system-wide knowledge. So I will use here system-wide, right? So system-wide knowledge. So I can also say systematic, right? If you systematic word you can also use. Then systematic and objective knowledge of any discipline, that is science. So if anything is systematic, is psychology systematic? Yes, because psychology start from sense organ. You know that psychology start from sense organ, because sense organ will produce sensation, and sensation will produce what? Perception, and perception will produce learning, and learning will produce memory. So memory will produce thinking. So memory will produce thinking. So psychology is systematic. You can use these concepts to explain it. Like I can also use in the mathematical words, like sensation plus attention is equal to perception, and perception plus attention is equal to learning. Learning plus rehearsal is equal to memory. So that it is a systematic things. If you are not sensing me, like you are not listening me, if you are not properly watching me, in that situation yours you will not sensing properly, your sensation is not working in the class. If your sensation is not working, then you cannot perceive what actually I want to deliver. Then in that situation your learning will be also weak. If you don't have any learnings, your memory will always fade, right? So memory formation is a systematic process, psychology is a systematic process, and it is objective. Objective means which is experienced by everyone, right? So in this parameter, psychology is failed because psychology is not completely objective. But in the one parameter, it is proved that it is a systematic things, right? But in the objective parameter, there is just some arguments so that psychology is not a pure science, right? So objective, why objective? Objectivity means everyone experiencing same thing. Suppose you have just आपने switch on कर दिया, after that everyone try to do that कि switch on कर दिया, off कर दिया, तो सब में एक जैसा ही होना चाहिए. So that is objective, free of the biasness, या free from biasness, that things is objective. So science are basically two types. Usually you know that science two types के होते हैं. That the first is science is that is science, two types are there. First is pure science, right? Other is normative science. So pure science and normative science is there. So what is pure science? Pure science means that science science means what is. So what is means if any system, any things have a single reason behind of it, right? If there is a single causes of the events, so that is what? Pure science. Like physics have a single reasons. If there is a gravity, due to the gravity every object fall toward the grounds. So it is a pure science, it is systematic, it is objective also. And in the chemistry, the formula of water is same at everywhere. Again it is systematic. So it is objective also. So that it is a pure science. And there is a biology. Like chemistry mentioned, it is a pure science. Biology is a pure science. So pure science have a single region, right? Pure science have a single regions, whereas normative science means what ought to be. What ought to be means, you can also put them in inverted. So what ought to be means whenever there is a multiple reason behind the any event, so that is normative science. So in a psychology, in a social science subject, especially you have seen social science subject, there is not a single region. Example, if any political party has won the election, so there might be several regions, right? Not a single region. Similarly, if you are learning anything, there may be single regions. If you have suffered from the depression, so there was single regions, right? So in the normative science, like psychology, like political science, sociology, many more discipline of humanities are not a pure science. So psychology is not a pure science, right? But UPSC has asked at there on the both parameters, are you agree with psychology is a pure science? No. Are you agree with it is normative science? Again no. Because psychology is a semi-science. Semi-science means where is both characteristics, pure as well as pure science as well as that is normative also, right? So what are the essential characteristics of pure science, right? Essential characteristics of pure science. अब इसमें भी कुछ words को लिखना है, means you must write few words at there also. Like first word is that is empirical observations, right? Empirical observations means in the psychology there is a observation. Observation means होता है persistence perception or continuous perception, that is observations. So you must define how in a science there is a empirical observations, right? You can use this word, or you must use these words, empirical. Due to empirical observations, we can say that anything is, that is science. Another is, that is, second word is, that is measurable, right? That measurable. So that is measurable means can be measured, right? Like in a science, pure science, you can measure a lot of things like temperature, pressure, even chemicals process, biological process, all that is measurable, right? And next keywords that you can use, that is it can be basically explain and analysis also, that the things explain and analysis also, right? So that is analysis is also possible. So that is explain and analysis is also possible into pure science, right? Even instead of that, you can use the other words that can be predicts, right? Prediction is possible into pure science. Like if you will add some chemicals, you will add some phenomena, it can be predicted, right? What will be the next occurrings. So in the pure science there is a prediction. Next is that it can be applied, right? So it can be applicable. So that applicables means, as you know that Professor S. Pal mentioned many times, if any science is not working for the human well-beings or for the easiness of human life, that is not a good. Even Professor S. Pal worked at the several posts, and he tried to convert the science, or basically try to access the science for the every common beings, right? So applicability is very important. Like if any loss is there, it cannot be applied. If anything is there, if it is not applicable, it is not a purely science. So what I suggest to you, there are the few more parameters. On the basis of that, you can say psychology, not a psychology, even a pure science, right? So प्योर साइंस के कुछ पैरामीटर्स हैं, एंड वो पैरामीटर्स आप लिख लेना है, राइट? एंड बाय दैट पैरामीटर्स you should try to also connect with the psychology also. In a psychology, क्या empirical observations होता है? If it is, so you can say it is a pure science, right? So you should collect some evidence related to it. Like in the psychology, lot of phenomena, especially behavioral phenomena, has been studied on the basis of empirical observation. So that psychology is again pure science, right? On these parameters we can say pure science. Another is measurable, right? In the psychological phenomena, there are the certain measurements that has been a part of psychometrics. So we study psychometrics. Psychometrics means हम लोग human behaviors को measure करते हैं. Example we can say intelligence, creativity, that personality and interests, attitudes, aptitudes. So lot of behaviors can be measured, so that it is pure science. But measurements usually we use two scales, that is true zero, we call them that is absolute zero, other is a relative zero. So psychology's measurement is not based on absolute zero or true zero, it is based on that is a relative zero. So you can say that the psychology is measurable, but again it measures only at the certain extent, not completely. Then next parameter is explainables and analysis. Yes, Psychology can explain or analyze like other things. Here is lot of phenomena of behaviors such as learnings, memory, thinking, problem solving. All these were analyzed by the uses of several subjects, so that it has been developed and it has been explained in a more systematic and better manner. So, in a psychology, on the parameters of explanation and analysis, again psychology is a scientific in nature, right? Means that it is explained. Then next parameter is prediction. Prediction means human behavior can be predicted at there. Yeah, human behavior can be predicted, so that we are participating into the civil service, and so that we are writing, because on the basis of your performance into prelims and mains, they will predict that you may be a good servant or not. So predictions into pure science is very common, based on some statistical measures, based on some probabilities. So in a psychology, prediction is also possible, because we can predict human behaviors by uses of some things, like what evidence you can, why I am not giving evidence, because you can choose evidence as per your choice, right? If I will give you the evidence, most of the student will write the same thing, so there will be no diversity, जो कि मैंने नोटिस किया है. तो इसलिए आप खुद डाइवर्सिफाई करना कि प्रेडिक्शंस के लिए कौन से टर्म्स आप अपने आंसर्स में यूज करेंगे. एंड देन एप्लीकेशंस, यस, psychology can apply into other various disciplines like criminal settings, like consumer setting, political settings, and medical setting, health setting, and sports settings. So it can be applied into several settings. On the basis of its applications, we can claim that psychology is a pure science, right? So psychology have a both characteristics, right? First is pure science characteristics, then few of them are, and that is not a pure science, right? Why it is not a pure science? Because why it is not pure? क्यों pure नहीं है? First reason you can mention, because there it is based on normatives. Normative means what ought to be. It means in a psychology there will be not a single region. Single regions means there will be not a single approach, there will be not a single theories, not a single measurements, not a single way to understand, so that we can say it is not a pure science, right? So by this argument. Second, psychology is influenced by culture, right? तो second points आप क्या लिखेंगे? It is influenced by cultures. It is influenced by the geographies, so that it is definitely not a purely objective, right? Like the Eastern culture is different from the Western cultures. Eastern society was a gregarian society, and Western society was mainly industrialized society, which has developed later. So Eastern society was bounded by philosophy, and Western society was bound by psychology. So psychology is not a subject of East, it is a subject of West. Western countries, not a West, Kuda wala, right? It is not a subject of East, but as you know that in Indian society, it is continuously noticed that we are converting toward the nuclear family. Here means our joint family is breaking that. So the interference of psychology is increasing day by day, and in the East, especially you have noticed Indian subcontinent, there is too much diversity in the geographical phenomena, so that the way of problem solving, perception, learning, formations of memory will be varied in Indian context. Like you have seen some of the cultures who are very much conscious toward the costisms, some of them are conscious toward the monetary systems, some of the conscious with the powers. So every cultures की अपनी कुछ ना कुछ आइडेंटिटी है, तो यहाँ पर एक जैसी साइकोलॉजी नहीं प्रोड्यूस हो सकती है, राइट. एंड साइकोलॉजी सब्जेक्ट ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स. नेक्स्ट इज on the basis of, you can say, not a true zero, right. Absence of the true zero, or there is a normative zero, so that we can say psychology is not a pure science, right. तो pure science क्यों नहीं है? क्योंकि एक normative zero पर based होता है. normative zero like एक बच्चे की maths में marks आते हैं, so teachers can provide 0 marks, but actually he is not 0 in mathematics. So psychologists consider them, or the mathematical on the parameters or based on some norms, he is a 0, absolutely not 0 in mathematics, because he must have some ideas in the number systems or some other things. Then other parameters, there is a debates in the psychology. So in a psychology there is a debates, so that there is again you can say that it is not a pure science, right. Debate means if you are saying that human is determined by the environment, some of psychologists said no, it is determined by the that is genes, or some of them saying that it is determined by the any other factors. So in a psychology there is a debate, that debate, due to that debates means not a complete or full supporting, lack of full supporting arguments, we can say it is a basically normative science, not a pure. So psychology pure नहीं हो सकता. कुछ points ऐसे, you can mention more points, right. So you can collect a lot of points in the pros of that claiming pros, or that claims to psychology as a science, and you can also collect some evidence which is not supporting that psychology is not a science. But your balanced view will be there. What? That is, psychology is not a completely pure science, not a completely normative science, not a completely pure science, it is a normative science, so which have several laws and principles. Even there are the several tools and devices we are trying to use them to convert as a pure science. Like after the scientific revolutions, or the revolutions in the technology, especially computer technology, like we are using computer science to convert psychology is more systematic, right, more scientific temperaments. Like we are using some software, we are using some IT devices like MRI softwares, like we are using SPSS for the data analysis, right, and we are using computer science, right, for the understanding of human brains, behaviors, that evolutions of the hormonal science, we are trying to also evolve better forms, right. तो साइकोलॉजी को साइंस बनाने के लिए बहुत सारे हम लोग एफर्ट्स लगा रहे हैं, जैसे आईटी का यूज़ करके, कंप्यूटर्स का यूज़ करके, देन वी आर यूजिंग सम मॉडर्न मेडिकल डिवाइसेस, वी आर यूजिंग सम मॉडर्न थ्योरीज एंड कॉन्सेप्ट्स which is more scientific in natures. By that we are trying to convert psychology as a science, but right now it is not a completely a pure science, right. तो 3 बातें मैंने आपको बताने की कोशिश करी. फर्स्ट, what are the proof of the science, what are the proof of science and how that proofs you can use in psychology to justify psychology as a science, and what are the evidence that is given for the not claiming psychology is completely science, like cultural differences I mentioned it there. So that points you can write. Then the third, how we are trying to convert psychology as a science, and the final remarks that it is not a completely science, it is just we are trying to convert them as a science because it is a normative science. After understanding of this, what I suggest to you, we need to see the few questions, right? We need to see the some questions related to it. Just देखिए जो चीज समझें उससे क्या क्वेश्चन सॉल्व हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा. फर्स्ट इज गिव योर आर्गुमेंट इन सपोर्ट क्लेमिंग ऑफ साइकोलॉजी एज ए साइंस. तो साइकोलॉजी को इफ यू वांट टू क्लेम इट इज ए साइंस, सो देयर आर द फ्यू आर्गुमेंट्स दैट यू कैन यूज. दैट द फर्स्ट आर्गुमेंट सपोर्ट दैट द फर्स्ट आर्गुमेंट that it is based on empirical observations, measurables, predictions, and analysis, applications, controllability, right, etc, etc. Controllability, you can also use these terms, right, and so वो words use करके उसके answers आप लिख सकते हैं, right. And then the second is psychology is a called science not because of its subject matters but because of the scientific methods, right. Scientific methods why? Because why that have a observations things, that is their methods that have their psychology have their methods, right. That methods are experimental method based on that quasi experiment, ex post facto experiments, right. So based on that methods, other method is just like it's different approaches, that is again every approach have some scientific temperaments, that due to that we can say psychology as a science because of its scientific methods. So you can use your points, आप अपनी points को use करके वहाँ पर लिख सकते हैं, right. तो आप इस पे मत हाईलाइट करिएगा कि साइकोलॉजी के सब्जेक्ट मैटर. व्हाट आर द सब्जेक्ट मैटर ऑफ साइकोलॉजी? साइकोलॉजी सब्जेक्ट मैटर इज लाइक मेमोरी, थिंकिंग, प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग, concept formation, right. Other is intelligence, personality, attitude, aptitude, etc. So due to not its method, psychology is a science because of its method. Methods are like that is exploratory methods, or maybe confirmatory, maybe diagnostic, maybe prognostics, etc. You can use these things, right. So the third questions which has been asked, like psychology is a science, discuss the statements in the light of its historical developments, right. साइकोलॉजी एक साइंस है, कैसे इसके हिस्टोरिकल डेवलपमेंट्स को लेकर के चलें. सो डेफिनेटली दिस क्वेश्चंस कैन बी प्रूव by the historical perspective. First is psychology history usually we divide into ancient as well as medievals as well as modern, right. In the ancient, psychology treated as a subject of philosophy, right. Philosophy after the Renaissance period, or after the evolving of the science in the 15th century, like Descartes, Immanuel Kant, many more when has comes, so they have developed their own ideas. That ideas were used in a psychology to do better, right, to develop better and more systematic way, like so that you can use that points. And in a modern period, that psychology is a science because it starts in a laboratory, that is Leipzig College, that is started by mainly, I hope you know, that is Wilhelm Wundt in 1879. From that day till now, it is basically a subject of scientific temperaments due to its continuous exploration in laboratory, and due to its continuous research on the several fields or the several applications, so that you can mention these points. And the next you can use here other arguments, like its evolutions, like its evolution is first that is First method is structuralism. Structuralism focus on the conscious behavioralism, that is totally based on experiments. Then after the behavioralism, there is a gestaltisms. Gestaltisms again experiment based. Then after that there is a psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis was based on hormonal science and unconscious desire. Then after that cognitive science, which is most developed field of psychology. So it is totally based on computer science that evolves after 1960s. And then after that 1970s, information technologies has comes, means indigenizations of psychology has started in India. And after the 1980s or 1990s, it has been applied into several fields. So it has been evolved in several forms. On the basis of that, we can say it is scientific in nature. It is evolving. Even दो perspective use कर सकते हैं. You can use both perspective, international perspective of the psychology's development and Indian perspective also for the development as a psychology, right? Next is question number 4. Question number 4 is there. So why should psychology be called a science? I think इसका जवाब आप लिख पाएंगे because of its empirical observations, because of a systematic study, because of जो भी साइंस के फेवर में पॉइंट्स आपने लिखे हैं, you can do. Justify your answer with the support of methodology. It's adopted to study the behaviors. Methodology which has been adopted, first is methodology में that is pure and applied methods, then diagnostic and prognostic methods, then it is descriptive and predictive methods, confirmatory versus exploratory methods. So that due to its methods you can mention that these points to write, right? और इसको लिख सकते हैं. तो methodologies first you can mention. Here is pure and applied is there. Second, descriptive and predictive. You can connect them, right? The most important thing is connectivity. आपको connectivity करनी आती है, so no problem will be there. Then after that, diagnostic versus prognostic. Then after that, you can mention confirmatory versus exploratory, right? Then qualitative versus quantitative. Due to this methodology, right? Psychology is a science, so can elaborate and can give some supporting materials related to it, right? Then the describe the key assumptions on which psychology claim to be a science. So किस assumptions पे कह सकते हैं कि psychology एक science है? So there are the several assumptions related to psychology as a science. The first assumptions, right, that it is basically based on normatives. एक norms के ऊपर based है. So due to the norms, you can say that due to the norms, it have multiple theories, multiple principles, multiple definitions, multiple measurements. So first norms, first point you can use because it is based on norms. जो चीज़ norms के ऊपर based होगी या normative है तो वो चीज़ें automatically वो एक right होगा. Then there is a norms but it is systematic, है ना? So you can mention many points related to it and many more keywords related to it, right? Then the question number 6 clearly says that discipline of psychology has grown and developed through the debates between those who hold that it should be modeled on natural science and those who subscribed to be viewed that it has followed the model of social science, what arguments you envisions for or against these view, what positions you would like to endorse and why. So it means you need to mention both points. First point, psychology as a science, then why it is not a pure science, what is your stand. Stand is beach ka, as you know, UPSC is about Buddhisms, which has been asked too much time and which is continuously asking, right? Every year पूछते हैं. Buddhism says midfold path, not purely indulging it is a science, not purely involved that it is a social science. Your opinion will be beach ka. We call them to normative science. In science है but normatives है based on certain norms. So by these positions you can endorse your opinions or you can complete these answers. So do you think that the natural science provide a good model for psychological studies? Yeah, no. Why? Because psychology is influenced by the cultures, influenced by the different genes, different other factors, right? So you can absolute zero all that points which I have mentioned. So आप उनका यूज करके इसको लिखने की कोशिश करें. So these are the basic essence of this topic. After understanding of this, you can develop a notes. What points I have mentioned, instead of that you can add some more points in your copy, in your notes, so that after the adding of the notes or after preparing of the notes, you must solve the previous year question related to it. After completing the previous year questions, then you can just judge yourself ki what is my points or what are my arguments, what are my labels for the preparation, right? Without PYQ, if you are assessing yourself that I am sufficient, I have prepared the notes, it is sufficient, it is wrong. So I suggest you must first make a notes, then solve the PYQs. Similarly, in every topic UPSC is continuously asking few questions only. Just I have been even provided the approach class for it, by the proper evidence what questions has been asked by them and how they are approaching continuously. So you should go through it. Thank you.